Paul said sin and death are universal because Adam, his sin was imputed to you and I. Now, to help us understand that and the depths of that, here's what Paul says. He said that sin reigned from Adam to Moses, although there was no law, okay? And so he said because there was no law, their sin didn't count against them because sin is not counted where there's no law. Let me tell you what he's saying. He's saying that between Adam and Moses, people committed actual sins. Man, they lied, they stole, they drank Miller ponies on New Year's Eve before they were of age. I mean, man, they did some stupid stuff like, I don't know, rooted for Alabama. They did great sins between Adam and Moses. But Paul said, but there was no law to define what sin was. The law defines what sin was. And because there was no law, what happened was God said their actual sins, their individual sins, were not counted against them because they didn't have a clue the definition of the law. Very important for you to get this because we preached back in Romans 1 what happens to the person in Africa or the person in India in a village somewhere that does not have the Bible. They've never heard the name Jesus. They've never heard the gospel. They don't have the law. Okay? Same issue right here. Between Adam and between Moses, they didn't have the law. Their sin wasn't defined. So Paul said, where there's no law, their sin is not yet counted, or their sin is not counted against them. He said, although their sin was not like Adam's. Now, what did he mean by that? Adam had the law. They didn't have the law. Here's Adam's law. Don't eat, live, eat, die. That's what God told them. God specifically defined for Adam his morality, what he should do. Do this, you will live. Do this, you will die. Adam had a specific law to obey, rebelled and disobeyed. People from Adam to Moses didn't have that, he said. So their actual sins were not counted against them. But, he said, they still died. Death still reigned. In other words, here's what he said. Their actual sins were not counted against them because they didn't have the law, but the consequence of sin still reigned in their life. They still died. They still suffered the consequences of sin, and they still, without Jesus, without faith in Jesus, went to hell because they had imputed sin. Listen, we're not sinners because we commit a sin. We sin because we're sinners at birth, right? And so we have this imputed sin, this inherited sin, and that's what Paul's point is. Paul's helping us to understand the reason that we need justification, and the reason it's by Jesus and by Jesus alone. He's saying because, even people who've never heard the gospel today. Here's the thing, people say, well, God sent somebody to hell because they've never heard the gospel. No, God sent somebody to hell because they reject him. That's the Bible. Okay? God sends people to hell because all people have rejected him and worshiped the creature rather than the creator, Romans 1. We talked about that. Somebody that's never heard the gospel, never heard the name Jesus, they're still under the imputed sin of Adam. That's why we've got to go. Because as John Wesley said out in our hallway, we've got a banner that hangs, untold millions are still untold.